Before we get started, have a show of hands. Who here draws? Who here most decidedly does not draw? I hope to change that balance. I remember my very first drawing. I was 2 years old. And I've spent my lifetime trying to understand the world by drawing it. I hope to share with you tonight some of the things I've learned when learning to draw. First thing, drawing is easy. Monkeys can draw, elephants can draw. We know cavemen drew. And if you give a child a crayon, they'll know what to do. Within a few seconds, they've completely mastered the mechanics of operating a crayon. And they'll carry on for many joyful years, with their every effort met with nothing but praise and encouragement, and displayed on the refrigerator. But there will come a day, the painful realization that everything they've drawn so far is wrong. All of a sudden, in an instant, innocence is lost. The joy evaporates. Magic goes missing. Life is not fair, and there is no Santa Claus. Drawing just got hard. Why all of a sudden did drawing get hard? Well, before we answer that question, let's look at why a child draws like a child. If a child was going to draw a cat, for instance, and they looked up, they might see their cat sleeping on a cushion, and it looks something like this. Simply drawn, could be expressed like this. If you showed that to a child, he said, well, that's not a cat. This is what I know about a cat. There's a long part in the middle. On this end, there's a fuzzy head that purrs when I pet it. Sticking out of the top are some pointy ears, and out the sides, some whiskers. Oh yeah, some eyes and nose. Hanging down, there's some legs with furry paws on the end of that. And on this end, there's a tail that gets frizzy when it's mad. This is what I know about a cat. That, I don't know what that is. Maybe a watermelon in a box or something. So if you haven't given away your crayons and you still want to draw, learn to draw. You have to put away childish things, look up, and see the world. Here's some fun facts about our vision. A human being can see the flame of a single candle over 12 miles away. We can distinguish over 30 million individual colors. And of all of the energy our brain uses in a day, 30% of that energy is used by the parts of our brain devoted to vision. It's perhaps our most important and powerful of our senses. But as important and powerful as it is, it's the very last of our senses to actually come online. So by the time we start seeing the world, we've already experienced it and made opinions of it by our other senses: hearing, touch, taste, and smell. Now, before vision came along, there was never a quarrel between the senses. Now that vision has arrived, it's like the four blind men and the elephant. Each of these guys have had their own unique experience with this thing, and they've all come to wildly different conclusions about it. Our eye sees the elephant. If you drew it, well, that's good, but could you make it more like a spear? Could you make it more like a rope, or a tree trunk, or a wall? So to best say why drawing is hard can be summed up with a quote by Mark Twain. It ain't what you don't know that gets you in trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so. That's as simple as that. That's why it's hard to draw. But that's harder than you think, letting go of what you know for sure. You all may have seen a book titled How to Draw a Horse, or How to Draw Whatever. The fact is, you can't draw a horse. A horse is made of muscle and bone, flesh and fury. All you have is a pencil. All you can draw is a line. Now, I could have drawn this line with a $50 fountain pen or the end of a burnt stick. There's been many books written about the quality of a line and which tools are best for what effect. But the important thing about a line is where it begins and where it ends. The good news is, it doesn't matter how you get there. You can draw it with precision or with a palsied hand, with a complete abandon or with thoughtful care. If it begins right and ends right, It is right. And if you spend a day of drawing and all you've accomplished is a single line and it's true, then it's a day well spent. There's no point in proceeding to the next line until the very first line is right. The next question is, how do you figure out where a line begins and where a line ends? Well, with our eyes, of course. The problem is, now that we've quieted those other voices, our eyes are lost. They've counted on the input of the other senses to know what to look at, what to ignore. Now that we've quieted those voices, it darts around from one detail to another without direction or understanding. So we need new guidance for our eyes. Luckily, there's another sense we have, and it happens to be the very first sense that came online. It's our sense of balance, our sense of gravity itself. Now, I can't stress enough the importance, the influence of gravity has on our lives. We spend every moment of every day trying to rise above it or yielding to its will. It's common to us all and to every living thing and to every cold stone and passing cloud. We may have heard someone say, you're not the center of the universe. I've heard that probably more than most. Well, that's true. None of us are the center of the universe, but we are all, each of us, a center of the universe. And it's gravity and our sense of it that lets us know exactly where that is. Let me ask you all now to just close your eyes for a moment and find your own center of the universe. Do you recognize that place? That's the place you begin prayer or meditation. And this is the place where you start all drawings. In drawing, nothing exists, but its opposite also exists. I cannot draw the light without drawing the darkness. One defines the other. The opposite of a thing is our response to the thing. And our response to gravity is the horizon. It is the power and devotion. More simply put, plumb and square. It's a constant truth we can count on, and this is where we measure everything. We don't draw a thing. Remember, there's no horse in here. Very simple tool, very limited. We don't draw a thing, we draw where the thing is. And if we can come to know where a thing is, we will come to know how it became and what will become of it. To elaborate on that, I was working on this talk, drove down to Bateman's Island for a place to think. Overlooking the delta across the water was an island, a low island, with 2 trees on it that splayed out. I knew where they were because I judged them by this gravity and the horizon. And because I knew where they were, I came to know how they came to be. These trees were not leaning by the wind because they were leaning away from each other. They were succumbing to the will of gravity because they were planted on a muddy banks of an island that was flooded most of the time. And I knew which would fall first. I knew what would become of them. And there were some egrets hunting down there below. And I knew things I couldn't see. I knew there were fish there, else why would the egrets be there fishing for them? You look into the void, you see nothing, and you try to judge where a point of distinction is. Is it on the line, this side, that side of the line? Is it below the horizon, and by how much? Connect these first true lines where they need to be connected. Once you've established these first very few lines and they are true, you can start letting the other voices come in and weigh in on it. Now it starts, the magic comes back, the joy comes back, and you can see the whole. The overall theme of today's TED Talks is hidden adversity, or something like that. And we've seen some of the adversities that make drawing difficult. But know this, adversity can only remain an adversity if it remains hidden. Adversity cannot survive in the light of understanding. We don't draw to express ourselves or impress our friends. We draw to understand the truth. And the truth is always simple, but it's never obvious. Obvious obscures the truth. There's an old adage, the truth will set you free. Turns out that's not very helpful. The fact of the matter is, if you will first set yourself free, free of knowing for sure, free of the obvious, if you will set yourself free, the truth will follow. Thank you.